It doesn't look the most likely place to start a football club. But after an initial public meeting at the White Horse Hotel on the 24th of April 1885, a meeting was held here at the Wagon and Horses Public House on Walmersley Road in Bury to discuss the formation of a football team. Bury Football Club was created and a committee was immediately elected. Their first decision was where to play, and a nearby piece of land on Gig Lane belonging to the Earl of Derby was chosen as the ideal home soon afterwards. The club became subtenants, beginning a legacy that would last until this day. It took over 4 months to assemble a team, and it wasn't until the 5th of September 1885 that Bury played their first game, a friendly fixture against nearby Little Lever that ended in a 2-2 draw. The following week saw the first ever game at Gig Lane as Bury beat local rivals Wigan 4-3. A new covered stand was unveiled in 1887 at a cost of £50. The terraced cemetery end of Gig Lane consisted of 6 raised planks of wood. Fans could often be seen risking life and limb to watch Bury as they perched on the rear boundary wall for a better view. For the first 4 years, Bury competed in only friendly matches. Then in 1889, the club became instrumental in forming the Lancashire League. The club's nickname was also coined during this period when the club chairman, J.T. Ingham, announced at the start of a Lancashire Senior Cup game against Everton, "We'll give them a shaking. In fact, we are the Shakers." Bury fared well in the Lancashire League, winning the championship twice. This success encouraged the club to apply for membership of the Football League in 1894. Along with Manchester City, Leicester Fosse and Burton, Bury were elected to Division 2. Bury's first ever game in the Football League ended in a 4-2 home win against Manchester City on the 1st of September 1894. The Shakers went on to win all 15 of their home games as they clinched the second division at the first time of trying. However, in those days, the championship didn't automatically bring promotion. Bury had to overcome Liverpool, the bottom club in Division 1, in a test match to ensure that they were good enough to compete. Bury won the match 1-0, despite having goalkeeper Archie Montgomery sent off, and were allowed into the top flight. Montgomery had joined the club in 1895 and was Bury's regular goalkeeper for 11 years, although he missed 2 FA Cup finals through injury. In 1907, he was appointed as the club's first ever secretary-manager, but the First World War ended his long association with Bury, as the club had to reduce expenditure during the hard war years. A poor first season in Division 1 saw Bury fighting relegation all the way. Fortunately, a run of 6 wins and a draw between January and March began to help to pull the Shakers out of trouble. However, this was followed by an 8-0 defeat at Sheffield United, which did little to help. It still remains Bury's record league defeat. In the end, they finished 11th out of 16 clubs in the division. There was consolation in the Manchester Cup, though, as Bury beat Manchester City 2-1 in the final. Bury were victorious in the Manchester Cup the following season too, when they beat local rivals Bolton Wanderers in the final. The Trotters were the victims yet again in 1899, when Bury clinched the Lancashire Cup. However, the greatest moment in the club's history up to this point came in the FA Cup a year later at the Crystal Palace. After seeing off Burnley, Notts County, Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest, the Shakers came up against Southampton. In front of a crowd of 68,000, Bury destroyed the Saints' defence and romped home to a 4-0 win, with 2 goals from Jasper McLuckie and a goal each from William Wood and Jack Plant. Lord James of Hereford, the Bury president, presented the trophy to the team captain Jack Pray, and the supporters returned home to the north in their thousands. The long journey must have taken its toll on the fans, though. When the Shakers returned to action at Gig Lane just 4 days later, the FA Cup holders beat Blackburn 2-0 in front of only 3,000 spectators. The cup holders finished 5th in the league in 1901, but suffered an embarrassing 2-1 cup defeat by then non-league Tottenham Hotspur. This was an early example of giant killing, as the cup holders were knocked out by minnows from the Southern League. Ironically, A reverse of this result today would be considered a great giant-killing act. If 1900 was a good year for Bury, then the 1902-1903 campaign must go down as the club's greatest ever season. After clinching the Lancashire Cup and sharing the Manchester Cup with Manchester City after a 2-2 draw, Bury powered through to another FA Cup final, where they met Derby County. The Shakers led 1-0 at half-time, but then 5 goals in 11 minutes at the start of the second half confirmed their superiority. The 6-0 scoreline is a cup final record that still stands. In the 1902-1903 season, Bury won 3 major trophies and attained a league position of 8th out of 18 clubs, marking the pinnacle of their achievements. It would be a long time before similar success returned to Gig Lane. The next few seasons were very average compared to the dizzy heights of previous years, with Bury finishing in the bottom 5 every season. Then for the 1907-1908 campaign, manager Archie Montgomery released a number of long-serving players and brought in some fresh talent. One such veteran was Jack Plant, who hung up his boots after 17 years in the Bury side. Harry Tufnell was brought in from Worcester City for £20 and the promise of an exhibition game. Sam Broom came from Kidderminster too, and with several other players helped to persuade the Bury public that a new season would bring new successes. Over 1,100 season tickets were sold before a ball had been kicked, compared to just several hundred in previous seasons. The optimism seemed to be justified, as just a month into the season, Bury led the division and remained in the top half till the new year. However, 2 defeats in January precipitated a slide down the table that ended up with the side in 7th place out of 20 teams. League champions Manchester United beat Bury in yet another Manchester Cup final, but this season was certainly seen as a prosperous one by the board of directors. An average gate of over 13,000 saw them reap a seasonal profit of £1,095. Over the next few seasons, Bury maintained their First Division status, although they finished in the bottom half of the table on each occasion. They narrowly escaped relegation in 1911, when an Everton victory over Bury's fellow strugglers Bristol City on the last day of the season meant the Shakers finished 3rd bottom, just keeping them up. Next season, they were not so lucky. Bury sold their star player, Billy Hibbert, to Newcastle for a then record British transfer fee of £1,950, and by October they'd slipped to bottom position. They stayed there all season. Hibbert, an England international striker, was badly missed, and the team won only 6 games all season. A 5-2 defeat at Aston Villa with 10 games still to play meant Bury were relegated for the first time in their history. Now in the 2nd Division, they spent the last few years before the war languishing in mid-table. By 1915, with the world at war, the Football League was disbanded, and Bury FC competed in only regional competitions with the likes of Liverpool and Manchester United. The club also mourned the death of one of its longest-serving players when Teddy Bullen was killed in action at Vaux in France in 1917. A plaque was erected in the Gig Lane boardroom as a tribute to this brave soldier and fine servant of the club. Bullen was the only Bury player to be killed during the Great War. After the war, his teammates paid tribute to him at the Cenotaph in London, where team captain William Peake laid a wreath in memory of the war dead. For the first 2 seasons after the war, Bury were forced to change from their familiar strip colours of white shirts and blue shorts due to the scarcity of materials. Between 1919 and 1921, the team turned out in red and white hooped shirts and blue shorts. Back in their famous white and blue colours, the 1923-24 team were pushing for a promotion place. In September, a defeat of Manchester United at Old Trafford in front of 45,000 took Bury to top spot. Unfortunately, a disastrous run of 1 win in 10 games saw them slide to 14th place. Just as everyone was anticipating a relegation fight, a remarkable change of fortunes followed. A series of excellent wins pushed the Shakers up to 2nd place by March. A 5-0 home victory over Coventry kept them in the runners-up spot. Third-place Derby needed an unlikely 5-0 win over Leicester in the last game to go second and get promotion themselves. 400 Bury fans travelled to Derby for the match, whilst nearly 7,000 gathered at a reserve game against Everton at Gig Lane, where the score from Derby was constantly announced. With 20 minutes remaining, Derby were winning 4-0 and needed just one goal to pip Bury to the promotion spot. Gig Lane was silent as the nervous supporters waited for the final whistle. Fortunately for Bury, Derby couldn't score again, and on goal difference, Bury were in the First Division once more. Once again established in the top flight, plans were laid out to turn Gig Lane into one of the premier grounds in the country. Redevelopment of all 4 stands increased the capacity to over 41,073. This was soon stretched to the limit on the first day of the 1924 season, when 33,500 spectators saw Bury lose 2-0 at home to Manchester City. By the turn of the year, strikers Wally Amos and Jack Ball were forming a formidable partnership in attack, keeping Bury in the top half of the table. In April, 2 defeats against champions-elect Huddersfield put an end to title talk at Gig Lane. But in the end, Bury achieved a highly respectable 5th placing. The Shakers had a fine team, an excellent ground, and a balance sheet showing record profits of over £8,000. Not surprising, considering the average league gate at Gig Lane was 20,000. The following season saw Bury consolidate the previous year's success. A fine campaign, which included a new club goal-scoring record of 31 league goals in 41 matches by Norman Bullock, helped Bury to 4th place, their highest ever league position. Between 1920 and 1935, Bullock made 506 appearances and scored 124 league goals, as well as being capped for England 3 times. He then went on to manage the club at the end of his playing career. An FA Cup 4th round tie with Manchester United brought film cameras to Gig Lane in January 1928. 22,000 saw the local rivals draw 1-1. First Division football only lasted for a few more seasons for Bury, though. The 1928 season was only 1 minute old when Liverpool scored against Bury on the day the famous Kop was reopened with its new roof. Disastrous away form saw Bury rooted to the foot of the table for most of the season, and by April, their fate was sealed with a 3-2 defeat at Birmingham. Relegation, for only the 2nd time in the club's history, brought an end to First Division football at Gig Lane for the rest of the club's history up to the present day. The 1930s brought little success to Bury. The 2nd Division attracted fewer supporters to Gig Lane as attendances fell dramatically. But the loyal Bury fans still had some good quality players to watch. David Robbie was the supplier and scorer of many goals from his right wing position, whilst John Reed Smith, a well-known striker who scored in the 1923 Wembley Cup final for Bolton, spent 6 years at Bury and netted 108 goals. In 1932, Bury reached the 6th round of the FA Cup. After beating Swansea, seen here being breached by a David Robbie effort, and Sheffield United, Bury were drawn at home to Stoke. The cameras came to Gig Lane to see Bury win comfortably by 3 goals in front of 29,503 fans. In the quarter-final, they met First Division Manchester City, but were 3-0 down by half-time. Bury fought back with this goal from Wally Amos, but eventually lost 4-3. In that season, Bury finished 5th. The general feeling amongst fans at the time was that although the side was skillful, it lacked an inside forward to add bite to a forward line that had underachieved during the latter half of the campaign. The team's efforts over the next few years brought only mid-table mediocrity. A couple of minor cup runs, including a 4th-round tie at Everton, brought in valuable cash for the club, but in the league, Bury struggled to make an impact. The 1936-37 season was the highlight of the 30s. The facilities at Gig Lane were improved greatly by a new treatment room, and manager Norman Bullock had brought in several new players.
I can always remember to this day, like the team that they fielded practically week by week. The team was Ferguson, Bell and Gemmell, Jones, Mathewson and Whitfield, Rayner, Barge, Ernie Matthews the centre forward, Billy Graham inside left and Jack Ormondy. And you know, it really does stick in my mind. There were some very special games with local derbies with Blackburn Rovers, and I think that was the initial match of the season. We made a draw 2 apiece. But the highlight of the season really, and the match that I still consider the best I've ever watched, the most exciting, was the Blackpool match on New Year's Day 1937, when Blackpool, Bury and Leicester were all in contention at the top. And that day the atmosphere at Gig Lane was excellent. There was no problems of any sort in those days. It was all good fun and banter. At the final result, we lost 3-2, but it was in front of a record, Bury's record league gate, even to this day. It was in the region of 34,380.
Playing fine football and losing only 2 out of their first 19 games, Bury stayed in the top 3 for most of the season.
It was pretty straightforward. Then it was 2 full-backs, 2 wing halves, centre-half, 5 forwards. It was like a W plan, what they called it, a W plan. The inside forwards hang back, so you had 2 wingers, centre-forward, the inside forwards playing between the half-back line and the forwards.
A defeat at Nottingham Forest ended any hopes of promotion, and Bury finished in 3rd place, but was still resigned to playing in the lower leagues. Bury's attempts to build on the previous season's near miss included an unsuccessful bid for unsettled Dixie Dean from Everton, as they needed a top-quality goalscorer. Finally, 21-year-old George Davis was signed, and in just 1 season made quite an impact.
He was a centre-forward, and he came in after the promotion challenge we'd had the year before in 36-37. George Davis joined the club in 37-38, the same year as Eddie Kilshaw played. George came from Earlstown, and in his first, he scored 25 goals in his first 28 appearances, which was and he was playing in the 2nd division, of course, in those days. So he was a superb player. Unfortunately, he suffered a very bad leg injury that kept him out of the game for months on end. And in those days, even small, particularly knee injuries, the technology then to repair them as they do now, many of them, when they had a knee injury, the game was really finished. But, George recovered, but not to the extent. He was never the same player as he was in this first season.
Cameras visited Gig Lane in 1938 to record a special charity match between the 1924 promotion side and a team of local amateurs. The Football League was disbanded again when the Second World War broke out in 1939, and the club played only in regional competitions and friendlies. Some players were called into active service, like Jimmy Gemmell and David Robbie, who served in the Bury ARP. Midfielder Eddie Kilshaw joined the RAF and was shot down by the Luftwaffe over Scotland. Amazingly, he survived the crash and returned to play first-team football after the war.
Well, he had a feint of coming inside and then duck back outside. He used to beat everybody like this. I tried it myself, but you can't do it. It's a natural thing with a player, and he's a great player, Eddie. He wasn't all that fast, but his skill was superb, and eventually was transferred to Sheffield Wednesday.
Kilshaw scored Bury's first post-war goal after 19 minutes against Fulham, when the league recommenced in 1946. A 7-2 victory in that match got the season off to a great start. But Bury only finished 6th from bottom after a very average season. There was very little to smile about over the next few years, and the 1950-51 season included a sobering defeat at Main Road.
Well, Dennis Westcott was playing for City centre forward, and he scored all the 5 goals that day. We got beat 5-0. But it's always great to play at grounds like Main Road. Big, fantastic clubs these are.
Bury became the first northern club to install floodlighting in October 1953. A game against Wolves signalled the start of a new era of nighttime football. Another key game in that season came in the FA Cup 4th round tie against Arsenal at Highbury. The Bury team, seen here before the match, played out an exciting game with the Gunners in front of 45,000 fans.
Well, of course, we went knowing that we weren't the favourites, I suppose. It was a windy day. It was windy. We lost 6-2, I think. But they're a good side then, you know. We were just not bad up to a point, and then things started clicking for them.
They had a great side out. Joe Mercer, Logie, Lishman all playing. And it was a great thing to play in that match for me, an event in my football life, never forget it. Much the better side, Arsenal, of course, and it showed. Heated floors in the dressing room and their own bank inside the entrance hall. The marvellous, we've never seen anything like it before. Marvellous thing going to Arsenal.
The following season, Bury were involved in a mammoth FA Cup tie with Stoke.
Well, we got fogged off in the first match, and it was replayed at home the next time, and it was a draw game. And then we went to Liverpool and played there. Draw again. Went to Everton. Played under snowy conditions, very bad day. Draw again. Next match was at Old Trafford. Thick with mud after all the snow and ice had thawed. And we got beat in the last minute of extra time, 3-2. At Old Trafford, and it was laid on to have gone to Main Road the next match for the 6th time. One of the Stoke forwards hit the ball from edge of the penalty area. It hit the bar, came down behind the goalkeeper, had come out about 4 feet off his line, and it hit his heel and went in. Amazing goal, and that's knocked it out.
In 1957, disaster struck. After a season which saw only 7 wins, Bury were relegated and had to face the prospect of playing 3rd division football for the first time in the club's history.
Players not quite good enough, really. I wouldn't like to say anything other than that. I don't think it was tactics. Managers have always had a struggle at Bury. I was bitterly disappointed. I think that was my biggest disappointment in the footballing time at Bury, was when we first got relegated to the 3rd division. Now we're used to it.
However, the club did not have to wait long before regaining their 2nd division status. For the beginning of the 1960-61 season under manager Dave Russell, not a single new player was brought in to strengthen the team, previously placed 7th in the 3rd division. By the time this footage was taken during a match at Bournemouth in November, Bury were riding high and had held one of the leading positions throughout the campaign. Bob Stokoe arrived from Newcastle to strengthen the team. His power and determination soon made a good impression.
Bob couldn't play a friendly match. Why? Oh, he was strong. He kept the thing going. You know. That was the big part of the machine, Bob. And of course he was a good captain as well. That was what held him up. When you get a few good players and you get a man in the middle of them that can fight battles, you've got a chance.
Promotion was clinched at Bradford on April the 15th. A week later, a 3-0 win over Hull at Gig Lane gave Bury the championship. At the final whistle, the 10,000 crowd spilled onto the pitch in celebration of a wonderful season. The victorious team paraded the title through the streets of Bury for only the second time in the club's history. They topped the division with only 21 professionals in the squad and created several club records. Most goals, most points, 18 games without defeat, record profits of £33,000 and the best defensive record in the whole league.
We didn't give many goals away. I think we played 46 games and I think they only conceded something like 43 goals in the whole of the games and scored well over 100 goals, and that had a very good forward line. And as I say, won the championship quite considerably at the end of the season. Well, we had Bill Holden as a centre forward who had been with Burnley, who was one of our top players, and Johnny Hubbard, the outside left, was another top player. And Brian Turner, who had been captain, and a wing half, Gordon Atherton, all very good players, and it was quite a delight to play with them.
Dave Russell's men found themselves back in Division 2, and it was little surprise that the manager kept faith in his runaway champion heroes, adding only one player to his squad for the 1961-62 season. However, Russell himself left the club in December to become manager of Tranmere, and 31-year-old Bob Stokoe became Bury's youngest ever boss. Working as player-manager, he steered the club out of the relegation zone after poor form throughout most of the season. In February 1964, with Bury hitting rock-bottom position, Bob Stokoe introduced a young Colin Bell to the team. Ironically, Bell made his debut and scored his first goal against Manchester City at Main Road. He helped to lift the club from the foot of the table, and they eventually finished in a safe 18th place.
I had a friend called Ronnie Batty who had played with me during my Newcastle days, and decided that he would do a little scouting for us in the northeast. And I was quite happy for him to do that. And he rang me this day to say he'd seen a young boy called Colin Bell, who we would like to bring down for us to have a look at. And well, by all means, please do so. We were delighted when he came down. And when he came down and played for us, and that we wouldn't let him leave the area till he signed a form, and that because we were quite satisfied that he was going to be something special. Tall, lean lad, and we were thrilled to bits with what happened afterwards.
Bell would only remain at the club until 1966, when he was transferred to Manchester City, but will always be remembered as one of its finest players. The same season that Bell left also saw the departure of manager Bob Stokoe and star striker Ray Pointer, who scored 17 goals in 19 games. Pointer was controversially sold to Coventry for £20,000. The fans and local media were none too pleased. The loss of two key players affected the team heavily, and in 1967, Bury were once again relegated, coming bottom of the division. Manager Les Shannon was sacked and temporarily replaced by coach Les Hart. But just 66 days later, after a boardroom battle that saw chairman Bill Allen resign, Shannon was reinstated and Les Hart reverted back to coach. The change seemed to work as Bury climbed the table and by April were pushing for a promotion place. In the final game against Watford, only 1 point was required to ensure promotion, and the champagne corks popped after the Shakers won 2-0. Bury had been promoted back to Division 2 at the first attempt. During the next season in the second division, it was felt the directors had not strengthened the promotion team sufficiently. By allowing Bobby Owen to join Manchester City, they had condemned the club to a season-long struggle.
Different players from the youth team, they bring them through and they've got to sell them, you know, which is a bit nasty really, but they have to do it, you know, to survive. You know, I had to go. Possibly I shouldn't have gone at the time I did, but that wasn't nothing to do with me. It was, you know, the directors.
Failure to strengthen and the disappointing performances of new signing Alf Arrowsmith, who took 5 months to register his first goal, all helped to seal Bury's fate. On the penultimate game of the season, a home defeat by Bristol City relegated the Shakers for the second time in 3 years. It seemed Bury were becoming something of a yo-yo club. The slump continued in 1971 as they found themselves once again relegated by coming third from bottom. The club would have to play 4th Division football for the first time in its history. For chairman George Horridge, who was able to recollect Bury's FA Cup wins and the days as a 1st Division club, it was all too much. He tendered his resignation within hours of certain relegation. By 1973, a stronger side had been built to mount a challenge for promotion. New signings Steve Hoolican and Peter Swan beefed up the defence, and along with striker Derek Spence and Billy Rudd, Bury began the season at a cracking pace.
Well, we definitely played to our strengths, and that was going forward. We had a fantastic, well, Keith Kennedy and Steve Hooligan you talk about the wing backs and people like that, they used to steam down down the flanks, firing crosses in. And we also had George Hampstead, who probably was one of the instigators for me ever being a good header of a ball, because he used to drop it right on my head. All I had to do was jump. And I owe a lot to George Hampstead, Keith Kennedy, Steve Hooligan, for the crosses that they put in were fantastic. So we definitely played to our strengths, which was, some of the goals that we scored at Gig were fabulous. You know, they really were.
I think the main strength of that side, I think, was the camaraderie and between the players. Again, we had a blend of experience and youth. Myself, I was sort of in my mid-20s, so you know, I was reasonably experienced. We had Peter Swan, who joined us that season, who'd been out of the game for quite a few years. But Peter was a real character, and I think he along with Steve Hooligan and Derek Spence, helped to get this team spirit going. And I think we had generally a good all-round side, well-balanced side. Bob Smith was a very young manager in those days, and I think he did an excellent job with the boys.
By the second half of the season, Bury were competing for a promotion place, and a run of just 2 defeats in the last 23 games put them in 4th place.
Yes, it was actually clinched before our last game of the season. We were due to play Newport at home last game of the season, and I'm not sure which team it was that was vying for the other position with us, but they played in midweek and didn't win. So that meant we were promoted by Wednesday of that week. We came on to play Newport already promoted on the Saturday. Of course, there was a bit of a carnival atmosphere. We actually came out before the game for the kick-off with 2 bunches of flowers to give to the crowd. And we were still having a kick-about, and somebody, going on to Peter Swan again, somebody says, "Where's Peter?" And Peter was at the back of the Manchester Road stand over there, right at the back, with his arms round the fans like this, and you know, they were all chanting Swanee, which was typical Swanee sort of thing. I think
The thought that we were going into a higher league in what was relatively my first season at the club, Steve Hooligan's first season, not sure, I think it was probably Keith Kennedy's second season. You know, there were all a lot of young players who had just gelled together.
Now back in the 3rd Division, Bury became giant killers in 1975 with a magnificent FA Cup victory over 1st Division Middlesbrough.
It was an FA Cup tie. We'd played up at Urson Park, the old Middlesbrough ground, on the Saturday, and we'd had a real battle up there and managed to come away with a no-score draw. The replays in those days were played immediately the following week, so it was on the following Tuesday. We played down here, and some spectators were still coming in. After 8 minutes, we were 2-0 down, which, you know, gave one or two of them a bit of a shock. But the spirit of the side came round, and you know, we really gradually battled our way back into the game, and eventually won it 3-2.
John Forrest himself was Bury's last line of defence for 14 years and played 430 league games, making him, without doubt, one of the club's all-time greats. A longer cup run came in the 79-80 season, when Bury saw off Burton Albion, York City, Rochdale and Burnley, and the fans spilled onto the pitch to celebrate reaching the 5th round for the first time since 1932. Bury were drawn away at Anfield against the mighty Liverpool. 6,500 Bury fans made the trip to Merseyside and saw the Shakers put up a brave display. Liverpool won 2-0, but the Bury team were awarded a standing ovation by the Liverpool faithful at the final whistle for giving the Reds a tough time. However, Bury couldn't sustain such form in the league, and the team were relegated when they finished 4th from bottom. Bury were condemned to a 5-year sentence in Division 4. Only a few cup matches against 1st and 2nd Division clubs stood out during this period. These included a League Cup win over Newcastle, a defeat by Nottingham Forest, who scored 7 goals at Gig Lane, and a 10-0 rout by West Ham at Upton Park, which was Bury's record defeat. At the end of the 1982-83 season, though, things were finally looking more optimistic. A win was all that was needed to secure promotion on the last game of the season against Wimbledon.
Here's Fishenden. Slips Breckin. And Evans! A shattering moment for Bury. Spencer again coming in strongly. This time the linesman waves John Leslie on. And it's Evans who tries to meet the cross, and Downs, 2-0. Problem upon problem for Bury. Johnson, is he away here? And was that handball by Thomas and Madden? But the penalty is given for hands. And a break goes Bury's way at last. In the dying seconds of the first half, Thomas came across and used an arm, and although Madden then put the ball wide, the referee pointed to the spot. So Tommy Gore, what responsibility with him now? He's scored 5 times from the spot already this season. And fails at the crucial moment. Besson threw his body into the line of the shot, which wasn't particularly well directed, it must be said. Parker got to stay onside by a gesture from the linesman. He was clearly in an offside position. And scores! Out of nothing. It was a real lazy looping shot with 11 minutes left. The linesman indicated that Stuart Parker had been played onside, then he collected the ball and bounced it past Besson. He couldn't stay on his feet as well as Thomas did. Fishenden away from Halliday. Has he done enough? He hasn't. Halliday slid in, but Fishenden looped the ball up and over David Brown. It was a lucky finish, really, but it epitomises the way the afternoon has gone for Bury. Ball skidding on the damp turf into Fishenden's stride. Halliday slid in, and it might have even looped up off him. Brown was totally committed, and Wimbledon lead 3-1.
Also in the team that season was a young defender who went on to play for Arsenal and England. Lee Dixon arrived at Gig Lane in 1985 and soon made a big impression.
I'd enjoyed myself at Chester, but I felt, having had a free transfer from Burnley and spent a sort of season and a half in the 4th division as it was then, that I could perhaps, you know, play a bit higher up. I had aspirations of playing in the 1st division as it was, and you know, I was trying to make the sort of the next step up into the 3rd division, and I was fortunate enough to know Martin Dobson and Frank Casper from the Burnley days, and they thankfully took me to Gig Lane, which, you know, I only stayed a season, but it was I really enjoyed it. You know, it was a stepping stone for me, if you like. We were quite a close team, you know. As I said, we met quite a bit and had a few drinks after the game on a Saturday and stayed in the social club and had a few beers, and you know, it was a great time for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure they'll look back if you ask them and say they had fond memories of that time.
We knew potentially he was a good attacking sort of player, but defensively he had a lot to learn, and there he goes, he's played about 40 games for England and now earns fortunes and still plays at 35.
I remember one goal at home to Blackpool. A ball came to me on the edge of the box and I just flicked it over and beat the offside trap and got my own pass, if you like, and scored. And I think that was the only one I can remember. I'm not so sure the rest of the defenders were too happy with me, the goals I was scoring, because I'm sure I left a lot of gaps at the other end, but as I said, it was attack at all costs at them days, and settled down a little bit since then.
Finally, the Shakers managed to field a settled team in the 1984-85 season. Player-manager Martin Dobson, who had arrived from Burnley, called upon just 15 players throughout the campaign. And as a result, Bury never dropped out of the top 4 all season. Striker Craig Madden scored 23 goals in 46 matches, many of them supplied by skillful new signing Leighton James on the wing. When lowly Halifax beat promotion chasers Hereford on the 4th of May, it meant that Bury were promoted without kicking a ball. In his first full season as manager, Martin Dobson had ended Bury's 5-year exile to the bottom division.
We looked good going forward. We always seemed to get plenty of crosses in, and it was heaven for me and Wayne Entwistle, because we had, as I say, Leighton James, who couldn't really run in them days. You know, his legs had gone, but he could put the ball on a sixpence, and we sort of had this telepathy between each other that he'd just drop his shoulder and I seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And it was really enjoyable playing with them two wide men.
Bury reached the 5th round of the FA Cup in the 85-86 season and achieved an excellent 1-1 draw at First Division Watford. In the replay at Gig Lane, Bury was soundly beaten 3-0. Another cup run in 1987-88, this time in the Littlewoods Cup, saw Bury defeat First Division Queen's Park Rangers at Gig Lane.
Hoyland's there, knocked on for Robinson. And he goal for Neil Robinson! Bury has scored after 25 minutes play here at Gig Lane. And what can you say? Shot by Neil Robinson, which beats Seaman 9 up.
In the 4th round, Bury were drawn against Manchester United at Old Trafford and gave the Reds quite a scare.
Well, there's not a lot up with him. Robson's come across to face him. McElroy keeps it coming into the middle. Hoyland, nicely done. Hoyland! Oh yes, he must score, surely! They have! Jamie Hoyland has done the impossible, and Bury have taken the lead. Listen to the cheers and look at the salute from Bury's travelling fans. Well, that was some really neat football. And he had a clear look at Gary Walsh. He didn't panic. He picked his spot neatly into the corner. Hoyland's 6th goal of the season. And 3rd Division Bury have taken the lead at Old Trafford. All Brotherston. Oh, good ball to McElroy. Is this going to be number 2? Duxbury, who intercepted. Olsen. Moses. Strachan. He's got round Pashley. Strachan. Yes, it has to be. And it's Norman again. How many times is Norman Whiteside going to resurrect Manchester United? Strachan Strachan makes amends for the earlier misses. He got the better of Terry Patchley, the fullback, and cut back a perfect ball. And Whiteside, arriving with no defenders, makes the scoreline 1-1. That's gone for a United throw, which they've taken. Robson. Whiteside's in the middle. Blackmore. Strachan. Robson. Oh, good play by Hudson. McClare. The smiles are on the United faces now. And what a relief. McClare's 13th goal of the season. Strachan knocking it over all the defenders, but look at that lovely bit of cheeky control by Brian Robson. He then draws the keeper.
A much-needed injection of cash from a new investor, Hugh Eves, enabled Bury to buy several talented players for the 89-90 season, as well as a new manager in Sam Ellis. Tony Cunningham, Mark Patterson, Gary Kelly and Colin Greenall all arrived, and the team pushed for promotion, reaching the playoff semi-finals.
Looking for the shot. He'll curl one. Oh, what a superb goal by Mark Patterson!
In 1990, after a disastrous FA Cup defeat at non-league Chorley, a financial crisis threatened to cripple Bury when Hugh Eves declared that he was unable to put any more money into the club. The players' wage bill was cut, and many top players were sold, including Andy Hill to Manchester City, and Mark Patterson and Tony Cunningham to Bolton. It was Bolton, with their new Bury signings, who were the opponents in another playoff semi-final. For new manager Mike Walsh, who had taken over from Sam Ellis when he left the club in December 1990, the next season saw a poor Bury team finish a disappointing 22nd, and they were relegated on the final day of the season. The team bounced back, and in the 1995 playoff semi-final a year later, Bury beat Preston and took the club to Wembley for the first time in its history.
Form of these two sides coming into the fixture could not be different. A major difference between the two teams as Morris goes for the ball, appeals for handball, and it's in. Chesterfield have the lead, and it looks as if Tony Lormer has scored for United. Kelly looks across to the linesman. Lormer celebrates, That's his 11th of the season. Chesterfield, out of nothing, have scored. The long throw, something that Berry wanted to expose, has caught them out. And Chesterfield have the lead thanks to Tony Lormer. Lormer, who joined in December on a free from Peterborough. 10 from 23 before today, now it's 11 from 24. It's 5 now, 3 in the Berry ranks, 2 in the Chesterfield side. Law with the long throw. It was from one of these that the first goal came, and here is the second now from Chesterfield. Phil Robinson goes in to score his 9th of the season, and Berry once more exposed from the long ball. 41 minutes on the clock, and Chesterfield doubled their lead. But where was the Berry defence? For the second time, they have been exposed by Nicky Law. And this the turn of Phil Robinson to collect his 9th goal. And what a time to score.
After tasting the bitter disappointment of losing at Wembley, Berry were determined to get into Division 2. Under new manager Stan Turnant, who replaced Mike Walsh after a string of poor results, Berry remained in the top 5 from March onwards. Automatic promotion rested on winning the final game of the season and hoping that Darlington did not win at Scunthorpe.
Well, that's what the Shakers wanted. She breaks the deadlock. 25 minutes gone. His wall. 25 yards or so out. Oh, good save by Gary Kelly. Well, he's not had much to do in this first half, really. Kelly's kick upfield. Underneath it is Carter. Johnson. The ball did the work there. Still Johnson. Still Johnson. Good save. Oh, he's got in! Oh, he's got in! And this Shakers is 2-1. Johnson can't believe it. The ground erupts and Berry have got some breathing space. We're 7 minutes into this second half. Berry 2, Cardiff City 0. It's John Rose. John Rose again. Hugh. Rigby. Shot from Rigby, 3-0. Well, that settles things here. Minutes into this second half, the Shakers take a 3-goal lead. Ball comes over, headed down. Oh, a chance here. Well, how did it stay out? And there's the final whistle. Well, the Shakers have done their bit. The crowd run on.
The fans waited nervously as news of Darlington versus Scunthorpe came through. To the joy of the Berry faithful, Darlington couldn't win at Scunthorpe, and promotion to the second division was achieved. Next season, Berry went one better and achieved the incredible. Having led the second division since March, a draw with Watford secured promotion.
As Johnson went down, and Watford have a penalty, which surely will win them the game if they can get it. It will be Tommy Mooney who is given the responsibility of trying to at least give the Hornet supporters a real cheer with number 14 of the season. Kylie saved it. And that could well be the save that takes Bury to promotion. The clearance is made, and Dean Kiley has made the penalty save that will almost certainly cost promotion. Jump by Phillips under pressure from Lucchesi. And there it is. Bury are promoted to the First Division thanks to that man's penalty save, Dean Kiley.
A win over Millwall in front of 10,000 fans on the final game of the season would see Bury promoted as champions.
Shrugs off the challenge. Click ball. Yes! Oh, what a goal! It's Ronnie Jepson! The defender got a slight touch to the ball, but it didn't put Jepson up at all. A marvellous cross from West. The goalie got his hand to Jepson's header. But oh, what a goal from Ronnie Jepson! Is that the one to lift the championship? 23 minutes gone in this second half. The Shakers take the lead. So Millwall throw. Mind you, there's still 14.5 minutes left here. Johnson took it well. Still Johnson, using his strength and his pace. Keeps on his feet, he's got support. Ball comes across. John Rose, here's Battersby, checks, turns. Withstood the challenge well. Pugh, good cross. Ball back over. Chance of a second, yes! It's bloody John Rose! For the Shakers. That surely guaranteed the title. And there is the final whistle. The Shakers are the champions, and the championship trophy will be presented fairly soon.
It was 36 years since the last championship was won at Gig Lane, and the title win was all the more incredible considering the limited resources available for manager Stan Ternent. For many fans, it can certainly be said that the 1996-97 season was one of the proudest and finest seasons in living memory.
Patterson. That's a good cross. It's got in! The Shakers have taken the lead! Would you believe it? who's even scored it? It looks to be Gordon Armstrong. In fact, it's Paul Butler. Paul Butler with the final touch. And as I was saying in the first half, I died in the wool blue. Paul Butler puts the Shakers in front. We're 8 minutes into this second half. And there it is. It's a famous victory for the Shakers. The first win here at Melrose since 1975 at 25.
The dream nearly went sour after a string of poor results. It took this defeat of QPR to save Bury from relegation. As well as success on the field, Bury had spent a lot of time and money redeveloping Gig Lane.
Well, I think it's all culminates from the disasters at Hillsborough and Bradford City. We was an all-wooden stadium, and it was necessary to bring it up to the standards that's required, for, first of all, for safety, secondly, for spectator comfort, to try to attract people down to the ground. And it's been a major step forward as far as the club's concerned to virtually redevelop the ground.
The 1998-99 season included this excellent performance against Manchester United.
In front of a near full house, making their way over to our right towards around 9,000 Shakers fans who've made the short 10-mile trip down the motorway. Dean Kiley, no stranger to Old Trafford. He won here when playing for York a few seasons back. Chris Lucchetti, I'm sure, looking forward to the battle he's going to have tonight in his Worthington's Cup third round. The rain's just stopped a little for the moment. It really has been throwing it down all evening. Here's Woodward. Dawes. Priest. I think Van der Gouw had that covered. Shakers fans want something to cheer. And there, a fine shot from Priest, but it was just that little bit wide. And I'm sure the keeper had it covered. There is support there. Shaker from here. James turns, gets his shot in curls, but it was just going wide. Good opportunity, though, for the Shakers, and well worked by Luther James. Ball is spread wide. Solskjaer! Oh, Carney got a hand to it, but it's gone in, and the Shakers' defences are breached. Brown. Ball inside. Oh, the defence has left it, and Nevland has got in behind the Bury defence, and that will seal it. There's 5 minutes to go. United have a 2-goal advantage. Brown put the ball across. Nobody went for it for the Shakers. And in the end, Kiley, nor Lucchetti could get to it. And Nevland stuck out a foot. And into the back of the net went the ball for the second goal.
Unfortunately, the team slid down the table after this defeat. And later in the season, even a win over Port Vale on the last day of the season could not save them from relegation. Now in the second division, Bury have a smart ground and the prospect of a new stand to improve facilities even more. The future is looking brighter for Bury, a club that once sat in the highest league of English soccer, a club that was twice crowned English FA Cup winners, a club that remembers the kind of success it once achieved and looking forward wants to taste again